How's it going, my Comicchatauthority? We're here today with Mike Scrase, the creator of Zip. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing very well for 1 a.m.
Yeah, right. So the reason it's
International
one,
guests.
what what is it?
International guests are just quipping on the fact that I'm in the UK and you're in the east coast of America, so it's very late.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you doing this. First thing in the morning, late night, early morning.
As a creative, I have spent many nights burning the midnight oil, so this is normal for me.
uh, have you ever been to America?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've been to San Diego Comic Con and everything. Actually, considering it's the Comics podcast. That was several years ago now, back in 2014. Um, that's 10 years ago.
Nice. Well, I'm kind of jealous. I've never been to San Diego Comic Con yet.
It was a very weird um, story about how I ended up there because I was going over to LA for different reasons. And I was to save money. I was staying with my friend who is also a comics creator named Ray Breeson, and he does a series called Ninja Chicken versus Pirate Penguin, among other. And he was like I don't know, he didn't have I think he was a guest that year, but he has been in the past, and he had some sort of free ticket to it or something that you could get or something like that. So I basically got into San Diego Comic Con for free.
Nice. Um, so when did you put out your comic book Zip?
So when did it begin? Um, yeah. So Zip was originally a web comic. A long time ago, I started drawing it myself because I just didn't have the budget at the time to hire an artist. And so I self-published it all on a website that I built. But as I gained experience making comics, I realized that I could do this story that I really loved a much better justice using the experience I gained. And I am doing better for money than I used to be, so I was able to kind of put up more upfront than I would have been able to in the past. And so I've hired a team now in the form of our illustrator, Sanastina, letter Farron Delgado, and we've also got a bunch of cover artists in the form of Vanessa Cardinale. And in our most recent issue, we also have Matthew Schofield, I believe it's Schofield, I hope it is, who is, interesting tidbit, the storyboard director on The Simpsons.
Sweet.
Yeah. So the storyboard director of The Simpsons did the one of the alt covers for the most recent issue of my comic, the issue 2 of Zip.
So what's the elevator pitch for Zip?
Well, Zip is basically it examines superheroes as an analogy for disability, um, and it explores like prejudice through the lens of ignorance and apathy, as opposed to fear and hate. Um, so to elaborate on that bit, basically it focuses on a character with super speed, whose super speed causes her a lot of complications in her daily life just because of how delicately balanced the human body is. And when you change something about it that drastic, it, it causes a lot of issues for you. So, for example, she has really, really fast reaction times, but it's not something she can turn off and on. So every conversation she has with someone, they sound like this. She has to slow herself down, otherwise she'll sound like to them. And that's just one of the many struggles that she has. It causes there are a lot of issues finding jobs and dating and doing all kinds of normal stuff. But in her world, superhumans who have these kinds of issues have found themselves a niche in doing superheroing because it gives them a sense of purpose in a world that they don't feel like was really built for them and they don't fit in. Hence the kind of analogy for disability.
I like that. It's very original. I haven't heard anything like that before.
Well, I mean, people have made comparisons to, say, X-Men, but I think X-Men is more focused on a broad group and looking at more kind of like movers and shakers in a sort of a sort of movement. And also, like I said before, I mean, I alluded to the fear and hate idea of X-Men, whereas this is more about a subtle side of prejudice that isn't necessarily in your face. It's more fueled by people just not really knowing or not having time to learn about, an oppressed minority. I've always tried to write it so that you could make it applicable to any, sort of marginalized group. But it is my lens for writing is my own personal experience with disability. Um, I'm legally blind. I was born that way. I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD this year as well. Um, and actually, Zip was part of the reason that I learned that I had ADHD in the first place, because when I sent off the first issue for reviews, they all came back and went, "This is about neurodivergence, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Is it?" I didn't know that. And then I read it back, and I was like, "Oh, it is."
Yeah, ADHD is fun. I've got ADHD and ADD, and I mean, I think it's fun. I'm pretty sure I annoy other people at times.
Well, if you're looking for a comic that is apparently about ADHD, which I didn't know was about ADHD when I wrote it, give Zip a read. I should probably mention that, I mean, our website is zipcomics.co.uk. We've done 2 Kickstarters so far for our first and second issue. The second Kickstarter just finished. Kickstarter's been a bit brutal this autumn. I mean, we made our goal, but I think I've heard from basically everyone in the comics community online that it's been not great for anyone really. So I think I need to try and assess what might led to that before I rush into a third. But I definitely will be going ahead with Position 3. I just might need to have a look and see, what might be going on with Kickstarter, or what might be going on with, whatever. I mean, there's been, I don't really know much about what's going on in the US, but over in the UK, we've got the cost of living crisis, and everyone is very, very pressed for cash. So that's definitely a factor, but I don't necessarily want to rest on my laurels and just blame something else. So I think it might be a good idea to try and get to some conventions, because you can learn a lot from talking to people face to face and figuring out, what might be a good avenue to go in terms of sales that way. But I mean, you always got to try and learn and grow these types of things. But if somebody wanted to get into the series, I'd recommend basically, checking out our website in the meantime. You can set yourself up to get alerts to our newsletter, or if you just go to our Kickstarter, you go to my profile on Kickstarter, which you should be able to find on the website. You can follow me there too.
I'm gonna put all the links for everything in the description for you.
Yeah, right. I think did forget to mention the Kickstarter profile link, but giving you my socials and my website, so that's all good.
Yep. How are Comic Cons over in the UK?
Comic conventions.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's many of them. It depends on which one you go to. You, 'cause there's like, there's ones in London, obviously, and then you've got like a big one in Birmingham called MCM. I've heard MCM is great for press people. Never been, but I really do want to go at some point. Um, I've been to a few in Bristol, where I'm from. Bristol Comic Expo was always one to do. I've never exhibited there, but I went to as a guest, I went to a comic convention in a place that your audience has almost never, certainly never heard of, called Wrexham in Wales, and that was a really fun one. I actually met Nicholas Brendan from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Chris Barry from Red Dwarf. They were very kind of like big enough to have a lot of interesting stuff, but not so big that you can like stop and socialize with people. I suppose. I feel like some of the bigger ones, everybody's in a rush. But it is nice to go to a convention that you can kind of stop and chat to like-minded people. Really.
Oh yeah, I bet you see that, and that's why I like conventions too, because you get to talk to everybody,
Yeah.
especially the multiple day ones.
Yeah, and that works. It's the same thing as if you're on table as well, because you're basically talking to people all day, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Have you been to a convention and got your own table?
I have had a table convention. Yeah, that was mainly back during the days when Zip was a webcomic. I had the first issue self-published in print to sell. We didn't do any editions beyond the first one, and the rest were just online. But I used to sell the first issue a few comic conventions, mostly Bristol Comic Expo. I think there was another one, but it's been such a long time. I can only really remember Bristol Comic Expo vividly. I definitely remember it was one. But yeah, no, I have sold on the table a few times, and I found that it can kind of, like I said before, getting out and talking to people in person can really give you a different perspective on what people are actually, what people actually think about this stuff. It can be a bit difficult to gauge what people are about online sometimes, because I mean, the sort of people who comment on on a social media post or what have you aren't necessarily, there are some people who will be religiously consuming your content, but never once interact with you online.
Yep.
And so it can be difficult on. I mean, the internet's a great tool for getting your work out there, but it's I think it's good to get out and talk to people in person sometimes as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think when you have a table, I think you can get immediate feedback.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think you said it best. People online they don't always interact with you, even
yeah,
though they're consuming what you're putting out. They don't
yeah,
always,
yeah.
you know.
But a surprisingly large amount of people sort of just consume the media and the things that they consume sort of passively, which is not a bad thing. I've certainly done the same thing, but it's easy to get disheartened when you don't get the likes. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. and it's important to remember that likes aren't money either. So, I mean, it's not about making money, but you've got, unfortunately, in the system you live in, money is going to make you, it's going to be a barrier to getting your work out there sometimes. So, you do have to try and raise it in order to make your projects come to life.
So I was going to ask, do you put out Zip only as digital, or do you have?
No, yeah. So we are. We've been doing PDF versions for backers on Kickstarter. We've also got print versions. I meant to go and get a print copy of it to show off, and I don't. God, what was that? The camera. But it's over there in that room. Right, run and get it. But yes, we do a print version. We've been through print versions of every old cover we put out. So in the most recent one, the rewards included a bundle of the first and second comic in digital and print format, and you had some extra goodies as well. Everybody who pledged and pledged for a reward could get their name in the comic as well.
Nice.
And we had we're doing stickers and posters this time too. Because the first time I didn't want to overload myself with a bunch of different, extra stuff. I wanted to make sure that I got a solid foundation and figured out what I was doing with the campaign. This time, I kind of get practice with everything. And so I've expanded what we're offering for rewards. Still keeping it to flat stuff for the time being, because I know that when you add dimensions to the things you're going to post, starts to get more expensive because you've got to do bigger packages for everything. But yeah.
So really quick, dead or alive, who would you like to make a comic book with?
Oh, I mean, that's the thing about that is all horrible. I don't know if I mean, the thing is, my dad died this year, so when you say dead or alive, I'm like, well, I want to make a comic with my dad so that I can see it again. but dead or alive? Well,
I'm sorry.
No, I know. It's just that when you asked me that question, it was all my brain to think. But going for a bit more of a bit less of a downer answer to that question, there was a comic that I used to read as a kid. It was published by a UK comic company called Fleetway. And it was I know there's an American one. Well, this was different. This was the UK, which was a completely different storyline and a completely different set of artists. But it was the UK's take on Sonic the Hedgehog. It was a licensed Sonic the Hedgehog comic. But because the creators, like the writers and the artists, the games at that time didn't have much story, so they weren't put on the rails too much about what they had to do.
Right.
And so they basically used it as an opportunity to just do whatever they wanted, and they actually made a really, really good comic with the run they had. So there was this one of the best artists on that book was called Richard Elson. And he's done some Marvel titles as well. You may not have heard of him, but he has. And some 2018 stuff as well. Those are the titles that you probably would have heard of that he's done. But Richard Elson, I think definitely him. Because he's the first comic artist that I was really like, oh yeah, wow, yeah. He was the first comic artist that I really, went, oh wow. He and the writer Nigel Kitching that he worked with were basically the ones that made me interested in comics in the first place.
Sweet. Um, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Um, no, I mean, well, yeah, no, just basically just thank you for having me, really. Uh, I find it very strange that I can't stop talking the second you ask me a very open-ended question. I suddenly go, or anything. But yes, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on such late late night for you, you know?
Oh yeah, well, somebody's late night is somebody else's early morning, I suppose. Just
I
trying to
agree.
sound wise there. People might call them flat.
All right, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me.
Yeah, well, thank you.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.